Reactions are an important aspect of any competitive game, but they are especially so in fighting games. This is, after all, a fast-paced genre where we frequently make split-second decisions based on what our opponent does. From anti-airs, whiff punishes, blocking a mix-up, we do so many more things reactively than you may realize. However, despite the undeniable importance reactions have in fighting games, it's a topic I think is very misunderstood. People love saying all sorts of things about this topic, saying this is reactable, this isn't reactable. Some people think you need to have super fast reactions to play fighting games, or if your reactions aren't good enough, you can't improve them. And on top of that, people also love to throw around scientific studies trying to prove one way or the other. I think the reality of the situation is it's actually a complex topic and there's a lot that goes into it, and we're going to get to the bottom of all of that today. Today, I want to do a deep dive into everything related to reactions in fighting games, the different types of reactions, what goes into them, and yes, even how to improve your own reactions. I'm making this video not just for educational purposes, but also because I just really love fighting games and enjoy discussing the finer details that go into them. So if you're here to learn, or you're just a nerd like me who enjoys a good discussion, let's get into it. Playing fighting games reactively is generally preferred compared to the alternative, which is essentially guessing. While guessing is an intrinsic concept to fighting games, it's kind of its own can of worms. Guessing by nature is leaving matters up to some level of chance, while reactions are more or less keeping things under the matter of your own skills and are generally agreed to be more consistent strategy when applicable. Distinguishing when you can react compared to needing to guess is a skill in and of itself. Now, before we go deeper, I need to make one point very clear. This video is not to start a reaction war. I'm not here to tell you that overhead is in fact reactable. Kind of the opposite, actually. There are many factors that go into how we react to something, and any given person may react better or worse to any given thing. There are many studies on human reaction speeds you can reference, but really, I'm not here to argue. See, I think it's actually a very important skill to be able to determine what you can or can't react to, and finding ways to react that work for you. I'd rather give you the tools to figure this out on your own. We use frames to determine the speed of an action in fighting games. One frame is 1/60th of a second. There are many things people will agree are reactable, but I find the benchmark for when an action becomes borderline reactable tends to be the 20 frame mark. Again, I'm not here to argue, but just know that's the benchmark for me. In any case, one of the most common mistakes when it comes to reaction debates is players just throwing around numbers without any of the surrounding context. Like I said, there's a lot that goes into reacting. Before we get into the specific reactions, let's go over some of the general things to keep in mind. Let's talk mental stack. This is a common term you will see thrown around a lot, and it refers to the idea of how many things you are looking for at any given moment. This concept is precisely why using online reaction tests is not a great indicator of how you may react to something in-game. Fighting games are fast-paced, and characters have a myriad of actions they can perform at any time. This means reacting to various actions can be more difficult than it may seem. See, if you're looking for every option at once, it's almost as if you aren't looking for anything at all. It is important that we instead make a conscious decision based on the context of the match to decide what to look for, thus managing our mental stack. The funny thing about this is I mentioned reacting is generally better than guessing, but in many situations we need to effectively guess on what we try to react to, almost blurring the line between the two concepts. Accepting that you can't look for everything is a big hurdle players need to overcome. One of the reasons you see strong players able to react as efficiently as they do is because they're confident in their understanding of what they need to be looking for. There are three key words I like to remember when it comes to this topic: understanding, anticipation, and preparation. It's a common problem that players feel they can't react to something in time, when the issue often stems from one of these three key words. Understanding the situation you're in and the options at hand helps you manage what to look for in the first place. Researching characters, lapping situations, and creating a strategy are all integral to improving your ability to react. Understanding creates anticipation. You have probably seen your favorite players react crazy fast and wondered how. It often comes down to anticipation. They know the situation and the options available, and it lets them hyper-focus their attention on the correct things. They are ready to react to that overhead because they understand when their opponent would want to represent the option. This leaves us with preparation, and this may sound redundant, so let me explain. Fighting games are an interactive experience. Players are ideally picking their decisions relative to what options each player is representing. If you are throwing fireballs, the opposing player is encouraged to jump over them, as it's one of the universal ways of addressing fireballs across fighting games. By throwing that fireball, you are now prepared to anticipate the jump because you understand that's the best option for the opponent to take. Our actions directly influence our opponent's decisions, and knowing that lets us be better prepared to react accordingly. There are some other details that go into reactions. Every fighting game has an inherent amount of input delay due to the game's engine. This can change also depending on the platform you're playing on or your monitor. These can seem like small factors, but they can matter a lot when we're discussing actions that are borderline reactable to begin with. Another easily looked over aspect of reactions is considering how quickly or easily distinguishable the action is. In many cases, a move that could be relatively reactable by frame data alone may not be as easy in practice because the move lacks distinguishable keyframes early into the animation, or it has visual overlap with another move. In Guilty Gear, dusts are universally 20 frames, but some are harder to block than others because the animation isn't as obvious, or they're used while there are other visual elements happening on the screen, obscuring your vision. It's very helpful to find keyframes of an attack to better identify it. Looking at dusts again, while they all do animate differently, they also all have a clear orange spark starting on frame 4. This isn't always the best way to react to them, but it's just an example. We also need to consider the difference between visual and auditory reactions. Studies show that humans react quicker to sound, and fighting games absolutely have sound cues we can use to help us react. Let's use JP in Street Fighter 6 as an example. Torbalon is a relatively standard projectile with a hitbox, while Embrace is a nearly identical looking attack at first glance. Except this one is an unblockable command grab. We can use visual and audio cues to help with this one. For Torbalon, he puts his hand above his head, and for Embrace, he puts his hand in front of him. Both moves also have unique voice lines. The difference in the voice lines is even more recognizable in English. This just goes to show how many different things there are to consider when it comes to reacting, even the language of the game that you're playing. There are also situations where you need to use audio to determine and react to something a character is doing off screen. This comes up often in team games such as Marvel 3 and Dragon Ball FighterZ, where you need to listen to be able to react to both the point character and assist characters that may not always be on screen. Every game and every move has plenty of things to consider when you're trying to figure out how to optimize your ability to react, so make sure to keep an open mind. I would like to highlight some of the different types of reactions we use frequently throughout fighting games and why their differences are important. Arguably the most common type of reaction people discuss would be defensive reactions, such as reacting to an overhead and such. These reactions are unique because offense usually has specific contextual points we can expect a mix-up to come from. Let's use Gold Lewis and Guilty Gear as an example. His Behemoth Typhoon special has various versions depending on the input. Let's focus on 862, an overhead, and 842, a low. Both are fast mix-up options that sort of look similar. This is an important case where you need to specifically decide what to look for to help you react, since his moves share visual overlap at first glance. In this case, I look for the coffin to be above and in front of his head. When I see this part of the animation, I know to stand up for the overhead. If I don't see that, I know I'm safe to keep crouch blocking. In this specific case, we can also simplify the situation more due to the fact you can backdash both options with the same timing. Finding ways to lump multiple answers into the same reaction is very valuable. This is of course a bit of a simplification of the situation, but you get the idea. Next, let's talk about Chip. He has a Rekka series where the first hit is a mid, second hit is a low, and third hit is an overhead. This one is tricky because you can skip the second part and go into the overhead whenever. We can use another technique to help with this one though. See, the low follow-up is actually so fast, it's not even remotely reactable unlike the overhead. So what we can do instead is after blocking the first hit of the Rekka, we can react to any visual animation change by stand blocking. If he does the low, it's too fast to humanly react to, so we will have already blocked the low by the time we react with stand block. And if he does the overhead, we greatly improved our ability to react in time because we simplified what we were looking for. Now, sometimes defense isn't always about blocking. Mei has a similar situation with her horizontal dolphin. The S version is insanely fast and minus on block, while the H version is much slower but is advantageous on block, meaning that we ideally don't want to block it. The way you beat the H version is by reacting to it with a 6P, which universally has upper body invincibility. While reacting is still difficult due to mental stack, you don't need to worry about misjudging your reaction and getting counter hit by the S dolphin, because it is yet again so fast that by the time you react to the dolphin, you would have already blocked the S version. However, this reaction is still harder because we're countering with our own attack. In this case, we're using a 6P with upper body invincibility on frame 3, so those 3 extra frames won't be too bad. Dealing with Ramthal's Ondo is more difficult. This move is 31 frames, which by all metrics is very reactable. However, it's very advantageous on block and pulls the opponent in, so blocking it is not ideal. Instead, the defender must attempt to react with either an attack or a jump, both of which have startup frames. Reacting with block is always faster because it's instant upon input. Despite Ondo being considerably slower than most mix-ups, it is actually much harder to punish on reaction because the actions we're reacting with have a startup. On top of that, the action you respond with can change depending on spacing. This is why just looking at raw numbers doesn't always give the full picture. I think some of the most important types of reactions we could talk about would be anti-airing and whiff punishing. Anti-airing, by all accounts, as far as frame data is concerned, should be easy. In some types of fighting games like Street Fighter and Grand Blue, characters rarely even have ways to alter their jump bar. Yet we frequently see players not even so much as attempt to anti-air their opponent. This all comes back to mental stack. When you're in neutral in a fighting game, this is when you have the most amount of options available to you. Movement, system mechanics, normals, specials, you name it. Because of this, players are constantly shifting what they're looking for, which can reduce their reaction time. However, by watching high-level players, we can see that this is absolutely a skill that can be honed. As you get better at any given game, you subconsciously start getting better at understanding what you should be looking for, thus improving your reaction speeds. Strangely enough, over the years, I've seen many players not realize whiff punishing is something you do largely on reaction. A conceptual strength of passive neutral where you look to whiff punish is that it is relatively low risk because you are only attacking in response, not preemptively. This gives your opponent little to work with in terms of finding openings. Even with the safety of looking to whiff punish, you do need to give your opponent incentive to whiff. Walking in and out of your opponent's ranges, making them think you're approaching or that you're in their attack's range, that's where preparation and anticipation come in to help you whiff punish on reaction. Another example of using reactions in neutral would be punishing fireballs on reaction. Many characters across fighting games have anti-fireball tools that they can use on reaction. When you show the opponent that you can punish these options on reaction consistently, whether it be anti-fireballs, whiff punishing, or anti-airing, it can really limit the opponent on what they want to do, which really goes to show the power of reactions when they're utilized well. The last topic I would like to talk about is hit confirming. This is a very important skill across all fighting games as it essentially refers to the idea of using our reactions to determine whether the opponent is getting hit by an attack or whether they blocked it. This is a critical skill as oftentimes what we'd like to convert into on hit for a combo will put us in a disadvantageous situation on block, if not outright get ourselves punished. When we're figuring out our offensive sequences, we often want to consider how reactable it is to convert into our best combo while maintaining safety on block. This is also why we do things like chaining multiple jabs together, as this gives us ample time to confirm whether the opponent is getting hit or whether they block. An especially difficult type of hit confirm would be a single hit confirm. This is the act of converting a single hit into a follow-up that would otherwise be unsafe on block. This is actually one of my favorite things to do in fighting games. I find it very satisfying, and you can actually just practice it in training mode by setting the training dummy to random guard and practicing only doing the follow-up if they get hit. One little trick that I always like to bring up for this is some players like to use health bars to help themselves hit confirm, as health bars update immediately and they're a very clear indicator whether someone got hit or not, as opposed to the character animation, which can be a little hard to follow sometimes. Pretty much every type of reaction we've talked about, by the way, can be practiced in training mode. Finding ways in training mode to drill particular reactions that you struggle with is very valuable for improving your reactions when it comes to matches. Every single type of reaction can be practiced and every single type of reaction can be improved, though sometimes the way to improve them may not be as direct as you might think. That's just about everything I wanted to cover. I think it's fascinating to think about what actions we do reactively compared to preemptively, and just how varied the types of reactions can be. If you enjoyed this video, please do let me know with a comment and a like. Not only does it help the algorithm a ton, but as a content creator, it can actually be pretty hard sometimes to tell if people enjoy what you do. I love talking about fighting games, and if you'd like to hear me do that more, I'd love to know. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next one.